So the good thing about this talk, I guess, is that you already have a lot of context and you know what's kind of going on. So when I go to these conferences and they're very specialized and everybody comes on stage, they typically spend 15 minutes shilling their solution and half of the crowd is uninterested. So today I specifically am not doing that. Even though our solution is part of this, I am presenting all of the options, or like most of the options that are currently out there for protocols to recapture OEV themselves. So what is OEV? I'll try to keep this short. You heard this. I kind of gave the definition also during the panel. So value that can be extracted due to an oracle updating or due to an oracle not updating. So every time you have an opportunity to take advantage of what's happening on a dApp, either after an oracle update or because the oracle somehow missed to represent what happened in the real world. And the simplest example of this is the liquidation. We had this example, like I believe, 5 times during the talk. The oracle updates, your health factor drops below 1, you get liquidated. So in essence, this decides when this happens, and typically a liquidation is tied to a liquidation incentive. Let's say you get liquidated for 1 million with a 10% penalty. That means this oracle update is worth $100,000 because that's what the guy liquidating you gets. And that's in effect how typically the OEV calculations are done nowadays. Staying at liquidations, if you look at the biggest lending protocols in the space, like Aave, Compound, Venus, and over their existence period, how much value did they lose? Just lending protocols, and you're well over 300 million. Obviously, this is different depending on how big you are. If you look at Aave this year, I believe you're looking at roughly 50 million. Compound looks at 15 this year. I believe Venus at 7. So it greatly differs, obviously, with volatility, because when things are volatile, most of the action happens. And OEV is similar to what we already talked about. It's just another piece, so to speak, of what we're already seeing. Very early on, you saw DYDX move to their own chain, obviously to internalize all of the fees that happen on their platform. But you also have different models. I'm not sure who knows Angle here, if you heard of Angle before. In the early days, Angle had a essentially exclusivity deal with a searcher team. Like they only allowed propeller heads to do liquidations and all of the other things that are juicy on their protocol, and they agreed to split everything that comes out of their 50-50. So that's how they kind of solved their MEV internalization, and obviously we heard the term unichain. You see slowly people doing a lot more to keep the value that their applications create. And OEV is not different. dApps are looking for ways to recapture the value that they create surrounding Oracle updates. And because of that, you have a lot of people like Yuma, like us, like Piff, building solutions to recapture that value. So this is what we'll be looking at and presenting. I'm going to start off with Yuma's Oval because they released roughly in January. Then I'm going to go into Piff's Express Relay and obviously finish with our solution. And what all of these have in common, and what I already said in the panel, is that they are auctioning off priority. And how that priority is created kind of differs, but the general idea is you get access to something in a privileged way. So let's start off with Yuma's Oval. Basically, what we already said, Yuma's Oval is a wrapper around any oracle that artificially delays the oracle update and lets somebody else auction it off. So imagine Chainlink, and the Chainlink network is providing a price update. Not accurate anymore, but ETH USD $2,500. Searchers see this in the mempool. And what then happens is Oval kind of, once the transaction is essentially coming, Oval protects this. So this price cannot be accessed unless you unlock it. And the rights to unlock that are effectively auctioned off by flashbots, like Tess also said in the panel right before. You buy the rights to then backrun this price transaction. So only you are allowed to unlock the price, so only you can decide when the liquidation happens after this price update. Just the gist of it. And then basically the price gets released, the liquidation is possible, and the value gets distributed. What is, or like, I always have a small picture that somehow tries to explain it in a more easy way. So you have a searcher, they see the Oracle update, and OVL just kind of blocks them and until the right is sold. What is good about this? OVL, like Matt already said, can theoretically wrap any Oracle there is. Like, it doesn't matter what the underlying Oracle is, if it's Chainlink, Chronicle, API 3, whatever. The only thing OVL does is effectively artificially say, hey, wait, I want to sell that, so chill. It utilizes a proven auction host and Flashbots, so it's a collaboration with Flashbots. OVL doesn't effectively auction this thing off themselves. The only thing that the OVL relay is doing is blocking it and then giving essentially Flashbots using MEV share the option to auction that off. And now the most important part, and this is something that I will be heavily focusing on, is it has an integrated fallback. What that means is, in OVL's case, if there's nobody buying this update for 3 blocks, it effectively becomes accessible for anyone. So if the OVL relay is down, if Flashbots somehow MEV share is down, the worst thing that can happen is that you're delayed by 3 blocks, and on Ethereum, that's 36 seconds. So effectively, you're kind of doing that trade-off. You're accepting the centralization of the OVL relay. You're accepting the centralization of MEV share for the potential rise of profits. And the worst thing that can happen is 3 blocks delay. And also, not to forget about this one, it's very easily integrated. You just read a different price feed contract. So the cons. MEV share is only available on Ethereum mainnet, hence OVL is currently only available on Ethereum mainnet. Limits the potential quite drastically of what you can do. Like, if you have a protocol and the protocol is multi-chain, what you do on mainnet you cannot replicate somewhere else with OVL. You can also only auction off when the Oracle actually updates. And since I already mentioned this also on the panel, you're dealing on mainnet Ethereum. A lot of the feeds run on 1% to 2% deviation. They update more sparsely, which means you actually can, like, you perform auctions way rarer than you would do on an L2. And this is actually the most important part. Since you're wrapping an Oracle, you're really dependent on the goodwill of the underlying Oracle. I mentioned this also on the panel. The underlying Oracle has all the power to make or break you. And sorry, Matt, but essentially OVL was announced and essentially said built with Chainlink and Flashbots since they wrapped Chainlink updates first. Chainlink came out and said, we have not helped or partnered with this at all. Hard came out and said, well, it's a permissionless product built on top of OVL. And then our beloved friend here said, well, you claimed it was built with Chainlink. So what am I trying to say here? Like, I'm not trying to show the drama. The gist of it is, again, you're trusting that the underlying Oracle will not screw with you. And if the underlying Oracle has the chance to fuck you, they eventually will. And there are multiple ways to do that. Like, they can blacklist you, or they can build their own OEV solution and kill you. You're essentially completely reliant on that the underlying thing that you're building on top plays along, which is a great risk. Next up, PIF's Express Relay. So this is the graphic directly from the PIF documentation. So Express Relay, you can imagine as an auction system. So this auction system, this Express Relay, is ran directly by PIF. So a very centralized solution, directly ran by one entity. The good thing about it is that they have a healthy network of searchers. You have Wintermute, Caladan, a lot of big players that are actively integrated with Express Relay and are looking for opportunities on it. How do dApps get started? dApps essentially deploy a contract that, similar to the Angle and Propeller Heads deal, only allows the Express Relay to do liquidations, for instance. So you basically give the right, the permissionlessness away, and only permission this system to do liquidations. But that's also not all. You also actually need to report the opportunities. Like, you need to run a little tool and actually need to say, hey, here's a liquidation. And then the auction system that all the searchers are integrated on, they can bid on it, and the auction system, the express relay, will execute that liquidation for them. Very simple explanation, actually. This is just eBay. Like, this is literally just eBay. You, as a seller, you go on there, you put your thing on there, and then because eBay is big and everyone's using eBay, you have access to a healthy network of sellers, or like buyers, sorry. So you're taking advantage of this platform. Pros of this. Again, I'm saying this for the third time. It has a healthy network of searchers, Wintermute, Caladan, and so on. PIF is very well connected, so a lot of the big players have integrated this. So you will have a lot of buyers for your opportunity. It's Oracle agnostic because it's effectively, it doesn't sell the right to a specific Oracle update or anything else. What it sells the right to is the right to execute an opportunity that was reported to them. And thus, it's also chain agnostic. Like, it doesn't really care where you run on, as long as like they can sell the right to the opportunity and execute on that right that somebody might buy. Which brings me to the cons. The biggest one by far is, since we're building all of these centralized OEV systems on top, is there is no integrated backup in this thing. Like, if eBay goes down, you're wrecked. If you don't report a liquidation, you're wrecked. And basically, it's completely up to you to deal with that big question mark of how do I make sure I'm not completely screwed when this thing goes down. And Branda also had this in our talk where she said you should always plan with this thing actually breaking, which is why it's so great that on Oval, there is an integrated fallback. And this I can just quickly show. PIF in the forum essentially said, you can protect against this downside yourself, just make it essentially conditional that maybe, for instance, after a minute, it's open to everyone. But what this brings me back to is, if I can go back, or like to get to the point of that is, you as a protocol are put in charge of this. It's not baked into the product. You have to think about it and make something happen so that if they die off, you don't die with them. Auctions can only happen on what the DApp reports. Like, you need to tell them, hey, here's a liquidation. Can you please buy it? If you don't tell them there's a liquidation, there's no buyers for the liquidation. So now the effectively performance of the searchers, like the big ones with Wintermute and Caladan, it kind of matters less because they're only as good as you are reporting to them. And if you are not good at running your infrastructure, or if you miss a liquidation that you should have reported to them, nobody will buy it because they cannot buy it. And thus, the final point, compared to other solutions, you as an integrator of Express Relay, you're just asked to do more. You have to think about the fallback. You have to report every single, essentially, opportunity. Finally, what we built. At API 3, we run oracles, like I also mentioned in the panel. We have a bunch of providers, like a decentralized oracle network, and they maintain a push oracle on a specific chain. Here we showed Arbitrum, and they do this on deviation or heartbeat basis, but the important factor here is this. This entire construct has an artificial delay by 30 seconds, because the same oracle nodes are selling real-time data on our L2, which is the OEV network, and searchers can essentially come in and say, I want to buy the rights for ETHUSD off compound on Arbitrum. And when they win the auction, they essentially get access to the aggregate of what they report ETHUSD is for 1 minute on this specific chain. And what they can do now is, for that 1 minute after they've paid, update that specific oracle for that specific DApp on that specific chain as many times as they want in that specific window. This is great if they recognize there's one opportunity, but obviously they kind of have to play this prediction model where they don't know what might happen after. Like, we're selling a slot, not the right, effectively. Like, if the aggregate OEV opportunity is 100K and the first one is 50K, you might not get the full 100K. But the reason we effectively did that is because of this balance between how often can you run an auction and how quickly does this auction need to perform. And we effectively said it's better to effectively auction off the slot and then allow this person to potentially also get all of the underlying OEV, since searchers oftentimes are also very sophisticated and anticipate certain OEV opportunities. And just to give, again, a small picture of what this is, anybody has driven a car in Spain before? Yes, 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 some? Okay. If you did, and you're on a highway, you're going to see something like this. Alicante, Alicante. Two different highways bringing you to the same place. Why is that? One of them is actually a toll one. You can drive faster there, and you pay to enter it. And one of them is a regular one. You drive slower, and it's more congested. So effectively, OEV network is on top of our oracles is exactly that. You can use our oracles, and they will bring you to Alicante, but you can also pay and be there faster if you want to. That's the gist of it. And the auction model is very similar to what Arbitrum did with their time boost, if any of you heard that. So effectively, Arbitrum, when you used it prior, you basically made a transaction, and it just processed the transactions first come, first serve. It didn't care what happened underneath. Right now, what Arbitrum does is people can effectively buy the right for 1 minute to have a 200 millisecond advantage over regular users. So you win a slot, and in that slot, you can insert your own transaction, so to speak, or have that advantage before the regular peasants, so to speak. And obviously, if there's a liquidation there, you have a 200 millisecond advantage in that slot. So you will effectively, for sure, get that liquidation. Like that is what you're buying with Arbitrum. And similar way, our auction model is pretty similar to this one. Pros of this. Our OEV network is directly integrated into our oracles. Basically, what that means is that it's available on every chain that we provide data to, which is a great plus, currently 40 plus chains. It's also easily integrated, similar to UMA's Oval. You just read a price feed. You just need to read a new price feed. You don't need to do more as a project. You just read a price feed. And infinite granularity for the time period that you access. Like, you're not essentially buying this one opportunity and so on. You actually get access to a pull oracle for 1 minute. So you can, if you really want to, update every single second on Arbitrum if that's beneficial for you, which no other person effectively allows you to do. Greatest disadvantages for using it. You actually have to use us. Matt also said this in the panel before. It is quite hard convincing die-hard Chainlink fans to switch their Oracle to something else. And this is effectively also the biggest hurdle of our solution. People need to use our oracles to make use of our OEV solution. It's also limited to the chains we support. I know I had this as a benefit, but it's also a disadvantage. Even though we are on 40 plus chains, we are living in a time where we're going to have 1,000 or so by 2 years, and there will be backlog, we will not be everywhere, and so on. So yeah. And our solution is actually a bit harder for searchers to integrate. It's a L2 with capital requirements. Searchers need to onboard, they need to have money there, and that will affect bidding behavior. And that's almost it. Final summary slide, just so you get the best of everything. Gonna talk about each and every single point, just to give you a big overview of what you're looking at. So, chain agnostic. Oval is currently limited by MEV share, so Ethereum only, but I'm pretty sure they're gonna solve that in the soon future. PIF's Express Relay, chain agnostic. Our solution supported on all the chains that we're supported on, currently 40 plus. Can you use any oracle? With UMA, theoretically, I think they only have 2 that they currently have out, but they will potentially wrap anything that they can get their hands on. PIF's Express Relay, similar. The underlying oracle doesn't matter because you buy the opportunity, not an oracle update. With us, not so much. You need to use us for us to be able to auction rights. The next 2 I'm going to do together because it is more impactful that way. So how much centralization are we talking? Oval relay can die, MEV share node can die, and what happens then is you have an integrated fallback. The worst thing that can happen is you're delayed by 3 blocks. PIF's Express Relay, you have the Express Relay that PIF is operating that can die, and you have the opportunity reporter that you as a dApp, people forget this sometimes, you also need to run something that can die. And when that happens, you're wrecked. Like there's basically, if you don't think about what you do yourself, you're completely screwed. And with our solution, you have the decentralized Oracle network underneath with the 30-second delay. So if nobody is going over the express highway, the regular oracles will eventually update with that slight delay baked in. And then granularity. Oval can only auction whatever the underlying oracle reports. So if the underlying oracle is not as granular, the auctions won't be as granular and won't catch every opportunity. Similarly, PIF can actually only report what you tell them. Like if you don't use eBay, there is nobody to buy your stuff. So that's also effectively a little bit of a danger there. And in our solution, like the granularity is basically what you want it to be. If you, in that 1 minute slot, find 10 opportunities and update 10 times, cool for you. Workload for the dApp, you just read a new price feed with Oval, you just read a new price feed with us, with PIF. You need to permission the express relay, you need to run the opportunity reporter, and then you potentially should always, not potentially should, you probably should think about a fallback mechanism because otherwise you're, pretty screwed. And that's it. My time's up. I'm not sure if I have time for questions. Okay, if you have any, shoot. Yes? I can barely hear you, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm just asking, if I'm Aave, I'm trying to do app-specific sequencing, meaning, I'm trying to sequence my own transactions, right? And then in that way, as a dApp, I can fully capture whatever MEV generated, from either Oracle update or whatever user action. How do you see that will, play out with OEV? Because, I imagine like OEV is a separate auction, and then apps are right now, integrating with OEV auction, but they do have the incentive to do their own auction if there's, right inference, because in that way they won't have to, give their share back to API 3.
Yeah, obviously. It kind of depends what you do. All of these systems in one way or another supersede or precede each other. So if you have app-specific sequencing, which a lot of people currently don't, maybe in the future will, that you might be able to influence that logic, and you don't even need an OEV solution because you can have that in your app-specific sequencing. I had a healthy discussion with the Arbitrum guys about this as well when they implemented their auction. Like the only reason they contacted us is because half of their MEV is actually liquidations, and our solution kind of front runs theirs. So it kind of depends what the app does. Like not everyone is going to use every single auction mechanism there is. Some lending protocols will create their own chains, others will stay on a big monolithic chain, and some will use app-specific sequencing, some will use OEV auctions, some won't use any auctions, and app-specific sequencing would supersede this 100%.